Stop trading time for money. Stop sacrificing for everyone else at your own expense. Don't just go for more, go for your game. What is your vision? Mine is to plant a seed of hope, connection, and expression into the hearts of 1 billion people, restoring love to humanity through entertainment. The company I sold is still moving forward with the vision of liberating 1 million people to become financially independent to change their family's financial future and destiny. Financial independence is where you have enough cash flow covering for your assets to cover your basic expenses. So those are visions, because when I speak them, I don't know how to achieve them, but it sets me on a course. And if you're bold enough to speak it into existence, and you have the courage to do it, then you simply have 4 things that are required to get there. I gotta tell you, Italy was a big part of the transformation, because I grew up, I'm a 4th generation coal miner. Like, as far as my family, my dad, my grandfathers, my great-grandfather are all coal miners. I've never stepped foot in a coal mine. But my wife spoke this thing into existence, and you guys are talking about vision. And vision, by the way, is the key container for goals to live, and the world is stuck in creating goals without vision, which is like having children without parents. When there's no vision, there's no context. There's no catalyst. There's no information about what you really want in life and designing a game worth winning. See, the world is really out there trying to get you stuck in this thing called the consumer condition. The consumer condition is a place where it's take what you can while you can. It's a zero-sum game. It's a battle. It's so difficult, and you got to appease other people, and you've got to sacrifice, and that's 2 things that the consumer condition uses as its minions to confuse us. You've got to want more, and you've got to sacrifice to get it. And those 2 things are seemingly good things. If I have more, life will be better. If I sacrifice, then eventually I'll live a better life. But we ultimately heed our life to sacrifice and lose who we are in that game. So, look, I was born into that consumer condition with a family of coal miners that said, you never know if you're going to have enough money. My great-grandfather was separated from his wife and daughter for 7 years, living in a tent as a coal miner till he could save up enough money to bring them over from Italy to the United States. And that permeated the mindset and philosophy that my family had for so long, because we were born into scarcity, and we did everything we could to avoid poverty, but it kept pushing us further into scarcity. And so I know that almost any time you heard the word sacrifice in your life, it was seen as almost a good thing. And the reality is, we only sacrifice when we don't know the formula of self first, family second, community third, tribe third, community 4th, and world 5th. And I'm here to tell you, the world's always going to be fucked up. The world's always going to have problems. The world's always going to be trying to drag us into a suffocating place of the consumer condition that is insurmountable. And when we look at the economic turmoil, and we look at the war, and we look at the strife, we lose who we are and the sight of what we can become. And so ultimately, we have to have the power to be internal on a daily basis and discover and mine the gold of who we are to live a better life. So, look, my wife, she said something that I've been thinking about for a long time, but I wasn't bold enough to speak it. She said, why don't we spend a summer in Italy? And look, even though at the time I had what people would perceive as a lot of wealth, I had all the material things, I still had scarcity in my mind that I couldn't leave my business for a period of time and still have that work, and that I had to sacrifice who I was in order to live this wealthy life and have this stuff. But when she said that, I was like, yeah, that would be great. And then I just did, in that moment of fear, I called my CEO and I said, I want to spend a summer in Italy. Can we create that game? See, that was a new vision. It was a new container. It changed the actions of me on a daily basis by saying that. And then we booked the villa. We booked the villa for 18 months out, so we had a little bit of time to work on how to delegate, how to offload, how to be responsible in the process of doing it. But our vacation and my mindset shift happened the moment we booked that. When I went to book it, I think it was like $47,000, and my wife was like, that's too much. And I said, look, babe, you want to be by the ocean, and you want to be in Tuscany. Like, this is what it's going to cost. The first one they sent me, I thought we were purchasing the property. It was so expensive. This was the other alternative. And so The reason that this was a big deal is I was caught up in this notion that most of the world is with the consumer condition, that wealth equals work, and that wealth is a byproduct of hard work. But hard work with the wrong philosophy leads to limitation, even bankruptcy, and doesn't equal prosperity. Hard work with the wrong philosophy leads to bondage. And this is where most of the world is trapped, in that financial bondage of trading time for money, of sacrificing now for the future, of scrimping, saving, sacrificing, deferring, delaying, of doing all of these things that the world has told you is required. Hey, we're indoctrinated to think the harder we work and the higher degrees we have, the more valuable we are, and the more degrees we have, the higher the salary, even though we're accumulating a whole bunch of student loan in order to get there. And then we're being taught by institutions that are really fulfilling this belief system that has everything to do with the indoctrination of the consumer condition, because what it does is it removes the power from us and puts the power in a textbook or a teacher or in whatever they'll call science. But look, how many times have people told you it's science and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about? It has nothing to do with science. It's just kind of a term they use to shame you into believing what they think they know more of, and they can be very articulate with that. So ultimately, we go take this trip and my life changes, because for 63 straight days, my wife and I and my kids were together. I've been married for 20 years now, but that was the first time in our marriage that we'd been together for 63 days straight. Good news, we still like each other. We stayed together after it. But ultimately, because I speak, I travel, I'm in groups like what you guys are here. So it was an awesome experience to spend this time together, and it was the first time in my life of having no agenda. Like, I woke up and it was just, what do we want to do today? We could invent our day. And candidly, the first 2.5 weeks, I was kind of like, I don't know, I'm living in paradise and I'm sad because I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still addicted to my work. I'm still indoctrinated in the consumer condition of more is better. And if I'm not putting in the time and I'm not putting in the work, what about my clients? What about my reputation? And really, my identity was so wrapped up in my business that I had lost sight of what a fun world looked like, of what leisure could mean, of what connecting with my family could mean. And so by spending this time there, first I got into coffee. I'd never drank coffee. I live in Utah. Most of the people in Utah don't drink coffee. It's seen as a sin and they're going to go to hell. I don't think God gives a shit if I drink coffee. So I drink coffee now because of Italy. But I came home and I went to Intelligentsia, learned how to become a barista, and now I can make an amazing latte or cappuccino or a pour-over, and it becomes a part of a satiating experience, which wasn't part of the grind that I had previous in my life, where David's talking about I did a lot of talking and not enough listening, which, by the way, most of that comes from childhood trauma. And you don't have to have a bad childhood to have childhood trauma or unprocessed pain. It's just when we're in a place where we feel unsafe, or we feel alone, or we feel unheard, or we feel a massive amount of fear or abandonment before our brain is developed, we start to build these paradoxical structures in our mind that say, I don't ever want to feel that again. And so we leave these unprocessed emotions that then start to impact our neurology and our belief systems, and we don't even recognize it in the future. But when we're kids, we'll make a promise to never feel that way or experience that again, and therefore we stay stuck in that paradigm. That's why it's so paradoxical. So for me, when I'm 3 years old, I get hit by a car, and I tell myself, if I'm not perfect, I hurt people, because I watch my dad come to the hospital, I watch my mom crying, I see my grandparents, or when I'm 5, I get molested, and I'm like, I lie to my parents because I'm like, sometimes you can't tell the truth because it hurts others, right? So then I'm 7, I don't learn subtraction, and here I'm in finance. But I have a bad day at school because everybody knew it but me, and I feel stupid. Or my teacher in kindergarten throws away a project because I don't memorize my address. All these little things that are little in some of them, like having an art project thrown away, which are big in the form of getting molested, but we have these unprocessed emotions that we would then store that start to show up in our relationship to money in the future, our relationship to others. And because I hadn't dealt with that very well when I first met David, I talked a lot to be liked. I talked a lot to show my knowledge. I talked a lot to try to bring people along to who I was and my philosophies. And then once I healed a lot of those, and by the way, it's kind of like the gym, just like what you guys are doing here. It's not like you just have an epiphany and life just becomes perfect. I think part of being alive is we go through life and we continually learn lessons. Sometimes we learn them the first time, but for most people, they don't make the same mistake twice. They make it 15 or 16 times, and it becomes a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more painful a lot of times. So if you can learn those lessons through education, that's awesome. Most of us like to learn it the tougher way, through experience. But ultimately, I think we have to give ourselves a little leeway, a little forgiveness, and be willing to look at the things that we're afraid of. Have the courage to go visit these moments that we promised to never look at, and then embrace that inner child so that we can have fun again, so that we can feel safe again, so we can be more abundant, so we can be more productive, so we can be connected to people. Because right now, people are terrified of artificial intelligence. And I'm here to tell you, if you're terrified of artificial intelligence, you're in the right room, because this is what you're building here is not artificial. It's connection. It's community. It's creation. And in connection, community, and creation, we know whether there's a soul there or not. Artificial intelligence, it's like, I don't have a deep, profound relationship with my computer. It's nice to utilize to do something. That's what artificial intelligence will be. Sure, it might take some mundane things off or remove human error, but what it does, if we really think about it, it gives us a chance to be the artist that we were born to be. And this is where soul purpose is going to matter more now than ever, because we can't just model someone else's success because it might become obsolete. We have to understand truly who we are and our place in this world, knowing what our values are, which is our script, how we operate, knowing what our abilities are, knowing what we're most passionate about, and then create the best vision for who we are, which is the context and container in which we live, in which you're forming while you're here with David and Carol. So vision is the rarest commodity in the world. And it's something that if we're bold enough to speak into existence, we can have come to fruition, even if we don't know about the power or resources to realize it in the moment. Most people won't speak it because of unprocessed trauma, because of childhood issues, because of past failures or mistakes. But you have to realize mistakes don't make you less lovable. They just make you human. And we're not defined by our mistakes unless we believe that we're our mistakes. They're just simply ingredients on the pathway to discover who we are, what we're capable of, and can build resilience and strength instead of becoming our story of who we are moving forward. So, look, when we go to Italy, after 2.5 weeks, I get drunk one night, learn about the Aperol Spritz. If you haven't had one and you drink alcohol, I highly recommend them. It's like sunshine in a bottle. And I'm drinking, and I'm like, hey, what are the most epic things we want to do in the world before we leave? What concerts do we want to see? What places do we want to go? And I have this amazing conversation. We're dancing, like just 10 of us at the villa. And then the next day, we book a concert to Elton John that's playing in Italy. And we just go out and have some fun. And you know what? In the consumer condition, you're not rewarded for fun. If you want that trophy of acknowledgement from your peers, or you want that award, whether it's Inc. 500 or an Emmy or whatever it is, you don't got time for life. Because now you're chasing something that, by the way, when we chase that, and it's not even who we are, we might win the wrong game and find out there was no fulfillment in it because we were just trying to do it to prove someone wrong because we're still this unhealed child that we haven't dealt with these issues. So ultimately, you have to create a game worth winning. Your game, where you define the rules. Not where society defines the rules, because I know what society's rules are: more, bigger, better, faster. Sacrifice, scrimp, save, defer, delay, wait for one day, someday for retirement, neglect your family, don't think about leisure, instead only focus on hard work. But hard work without leisure equals exhaustion. And so what really opened up for me in those 63 days is I started to have time to think. I had time to myself. I started to think about what hobbies would I like to do. I came home, it was like a renaissance. I started playing my guitar again, which led to the one-man show. I started to write just for the sake of writing, which became a very, very enjoyable activity for me. I started fly fishing for the first time, and I ended up getting this cabin that David and Carol helped me with because I wanted to build Italy here an hour away from where I'm at, which I just drove down from the cabin this morning. So it was a game I wanted to create. Now look, I know that everybody's in different financial circumstances and situations, so let me just rewind to 2008, where, look, I should know better. I wrote the book Killing Sacred Cows. it was about the 9 financial myths, but I feel like half the time when I write a book, it's like, all right, let's get ready for this test to see if I really believe and can understand what I'm writing. And that happened with Killing Sacred Cows because I had so much real estate and that market tanked. And so I didn't spend $1 of my own cash for a year. I didn't take any salary. I used my wife's credit cards. We put water in the shampoo bottles. Like, it was difficult. But I didn't declare bankruptcy because I knew if I would do just a few things. Number one, ask for help and be a better receiver. All you guys know how to produce and help other people, but how many people help you? People that are doing okay but want to get to a totally different level, this is almost the number one culprit. They're not doing enough of asking for support and allowing for support. They're trying to do too much of it on their own. When we try to do too much by ourselves, we burn out. See, if we think we don't have enough time, money, or the right ability, those are only limiting factors if we try to do everything by ourselves. But a vision becomes something that allows for other people to support you as well, and that's where you can get those exponential results that aren't governed by linear factors and instead become extraordinarily explosive from an exponential standpoint. So one of the craziest recommendations I'm going to make today, and I'll give you practical financial stuff, but we're starting with the sole purpose and win and play stuff here, is get a hobby. I want you to find something in your life that you lose track of time, that you're not doing in exchange to get money, that you just tell yourself you're worth it. You're worth it. You take that time for that hobby. You know, I like to go tinker up at my cabin. I'm into bow hunting now. So when David says I'm manly, definitely, bow hunting's a pretty manly thing. I also got my 69-year-old dad out hunting with me, which keeps him extraordinarily healthy. And by the way, got him to do the work like MDMA therapy and medicine journeys, even though he grew up Mormon, and going and seeing doctors that help him with AMIT. And as a coal miner at 69 years old, it's the first time he's been living pain-free for 40 plus years. Like 69 years old, right? But what happened? It wasn't like, oh, I need to work out. No, I'm like, why don't we hunt? He had purpose to his workouts, so he could pull back his bow, so he could walk up and down the mountains. It became an enjoyable activity for him. We started to hike together. We started doing these trainings on Zoom once a week called foundation training because we were working towards something. And then I was like, Dad, you're worth investing in. Take care of yourself. Because when he goes and does this, what's called AMIT with Dr. Bueller, it's $240 a session, and he's a retired coal miner, so that seemed like a lot of money. But now that he's pain-free, I'm like, dude, leave me nothing. You've left me a legacy of love. Don't worry about the money. I've got that handled. So he gets to take care of himself. And then he started doing MDMA therapy. That was $650 a session. I just paid for the first one as like a birthday or Christmas gift. And he's like, I don't really think I have any trauma. Well, he pulled dead bodies out of the mine. All of a sudden, all this physical elements started to release. And then I brought my whole family together, my mom and dad, which my sisters said there's no way you're going to get them to journey. There's no possible way. My mom, a devout Catholic, like from a family that went to church 7 days a week. My dad, growing up Mormon, had a dad that was a bishop. But I just wrote him a letter because I write. And it was heartfelt, and within 20 minutes they said yes. They almost backed out, but after that, my dad brought his best friend in to do it because he was struggling with stuff, and then we did a second one as a family, and we are not even recognizable as a family as what we were before because now we share our pain. Now we share when we're in difficulty. We ask for support rather than hold that and worry about others and never bring it up. You can see my parents look younger. What are you holding on to? What are you afraid to tell people? Like, we all have made mistakes. That's the thing. Yet we try to pretend those mistakes don't exist and that we have to live some perfect life. And then we prevent ourselves from expression. When we're stuck in protection and preservation, we lose expression and we lose prosperity. And ultimately, when I started doing this work, I had to bring up the most difficult conversations. I wanted to change my family's lineage and the generational pain that we'd been in and the mistakes that we had made by acknowledging the things that I had done. They were very difficult. They took a lot of conversation sometimes, but what it brought me is I let go of this past that I felt was haunting me because I was holding on by myself, leading sometimes to crazy suicidal thoughts, which makes no sense based upon the life I had, but it was simply the world wants us to believe that we should just work instead, and that's where workaholism or addiction comes from, or that, you don't tell, you just push those feelings down, or whatever it might be, and that you're a sinner. Well, fuck all that. You know, the reality is you are a human being. We're going to make mistakes. It's part of what we do in this planet as part of a process in this human body. But the biggest mistake we can make is, number one, wrapping love in conditions so that we're less expressive with our love. And number two, identifying that we are our mistakes, not that we made a mistake. So if you can start to integrate a hobby into your life, the first thing you're saying is that you're worthy. You're worthy. Your time, you're not sacrificing, that's for you. And what you're going to start to listen to is your intuition. You're going to start to hear a voice that comes in some unknown moment when I'm just on the river, you know, trying to catch a fish. I'm not even that good at it. I'm a rookie. It takes me forever to tie the stuff. But you know what? I brought my parents out there to fish. Like, we've just created so many great memories that even on this cup my wife made me for Christmas has me fly fishing. Like, it's just meditative. And what happens is, this is where I get some of my best downloads. This is where I get some of my best insights. Not from a podcast, not from a book, not from that kind of stuff. Instead, it's from my own inner voice, because your sole purpose is not something someone else can tell you. It's something for you to remember. Something that's always been within you. It's just, are you willing to listen to yourself? Because intuition isn't always convenient. It's not always like, oh, this is the perfect time for me to sell Wealth Factory and go be a comedian. Like, you know, that was scary as shit, if I'm being honest. Like, some people are like, oh, it'd be so scary to go up on stage and tell jokes. No, man, I'm more comfortable on stage than off stage to a certain degree. Like, I'm good with the stage piece. Although, my first comedy set, I was nervous as shit. Okay, like, I invited 6 rows of my friends, and the night before, I'm telling my wife some of the jokes. I had all these jokes about looking like Jesus but not having his powers. And I'm just kind of reading the jokes, and she's like, I hope you're going to be more ready tomorrow than you are today, because those are not great. It's like, oh, shit, that's awesome. So, but that's nice. You know, she brings the honesty in, and I worked my ass off, and the next day I did a 4-minute, 20-second set. I got high fives on the way out, got a lot of laughter, and I got another comedian to say, you should open for me, you're good at this. And so it was a hobby. Why was it a hobby? When I was fly fishing one day, I just sitting there thinking about, man, you know what, some of the best memories I have with my family is when we were kids, I could hear my mom laughing hysterically at family parties. My uncles were telling dirty jokes. I could retell those dirty jokes without getting in trouble, and if I ever said those words outside of a joke, I'd be spanked. You know, my grandma, who I'm going to her funeral on Monday, who just died, the number one thing she's talked about for the last 10 years are my telling jokes. She loved them. That's what like, I would see her, I was like, how you doing, Grandma? She's like, when are you going to tell your jokes? Now, the jokes I would tell her, she was Mormon, by the way, and her favorite jokes ended with twat. So I don't understand that whole thing, but she loved it. She always wanted me to tell them. So what comedy feels like to me is connection. It feels like love. It's the best parts of my childhood. And it was this expression. And when I said, all right, I'm going to officially do this, and hired an agent and set up a comedy special where we had 8 Emmy winners working on the crew, 8 cameras there. We had I spent $503,000 of my own money on it, but I'd never been on a stage doing comedy for longer than 33 minutes, and I was doing 4 hours that night. I was nervous. It was a challenge. I wasn't sure how to do it, but what I did was just worked on it on a daily basis. And you know, I would have people come to my house, and I'd do jokes for them. I would do Zoom meetings. I would do 5 days a week from 5 to 6 p.m. I would have a Zoom or people at my house, and I would do jokes because I didn't want to become a comedian that was out, you know, all night trying to get 3 minutes of stage time and neglecting my family. We, in our own lives, get told what's possible or not possible in the world because of how it's done before, because of how everyone else has done it. But you get to choose your own adventure. Remember those books as a kid? You get to determine what your wins are and what your rules are. We're not playing some board game where someone determines it for us unless we say yes. We get to choose what we do, but instead the consumer condition says, no, you need to fall in line. Go to school, get an education, work hard, fund your retirement, and then 30 years from today, when life sucks so bad you finally get to retire, but you're too old to actually enjoy it. That's a problem. Let's redefine retirement and retire the concept. That's an industrial age concept that came from people that literally worked themselves to death with hard labor. What if you found a life you didn't want to retire from? What if you created the life you didn't want to retire from? Retire from the things you hate, but never retire from value creation. Money and wealth comes from value. The more value we create, the more people we impact, the more deeply we impact those people. As a byproduct, money follows value. Now, when we start putting our money into investments we know nothing about, a diversified portfolio that we're waiting for 30 years and a retirement plan that we can't touch, riddled with fees, and in a bunch of companies that probably aren't going to make it in this new technology revolution, and we're supposed to say, just wait, you're in it for the long haul? Who wants to be in it for the long haul? That doesn't sound good. The only people in it for the long haul are truckers. And that's one long haul you don't want to make. It's all like speed and hemorrhoids, just pushing through to your destination. Yeah, doesn't that sound like what they tell you with retirement? Stop trading time for money. Stop sacrificing for everyone else at your own expense. Don't just go for more, go for your game. What is your vision? Mine's to plant a seed of hope, connection, and expression into the hearts of 1 billion people, restoring love to humanity through entertainment. The company I sold is still moving forward with the vision of liberating 1 million people to become financially independent to change their family's financial future and destiny. Financial independence is where you have enough cash flow covering for your assets to cover your basic expenses. So those are visions, because when I speak them, I don't know how to achieve them, but it sets me on a course. And if you're bold enough to speak it into existence, and you have the courage to do it, then you simply have 4 things that are required to get there. Number 1, find someone that can support and inspire you. Find someone that brings you accountability to move beyond scarcity and into creation. I call that a co-creator. If I'm writing a book, I want good editors. If I'm doing comedy, I'll write a thing, I'll run it by some people. I'll even work with Corey, my business partner. Hey, is this funny? Before I get on stage, right? So that's co-creation. The second, though, and this is the hard one, this is what I got trapped in for part of 2022. Because 2021 was a big year. I sold the house we'd lived in for 10 years. I bought a new house. I did a 16-city comedy tour. I filmed a comedy special. I helped edit that comedy special. I sold my business. My best friend moved away. Like, it was so many major things happening in one year that by 2022, I was a little bit tired. I had taken on a little bit too much. And, you know, I got to a place where I succumbed to some of my escapisms. So an escapism can be as simple as, like, watching too much TV and getting caught up in characters rather than your own life. Or it could be watching sports rather than playing them, and watching so much that it infringes upon your quality of your relationships, or listening to a podcast, or beating off too much. I don't know, like doing drugs. Like for me, I'm going a little hard this year saying no caffeine this year, no nicotine. I used to do like Zen sprays or nicotine gum sometimes. Like I'm watching no sports unless I have a whole bunch of people that come over and are watching it. I'm not listening to any podcasts that aren't like from my spiritual mentors, other than one entertainment one per week. Like, I've just decided I'm not going to allow escapism to come into my life, because I have plenty of time to live the life that I want, as long as I live it on my terms instead of the consumer condition sucking me in. Because when we move to escapism is when we bump up against childhood trauma, when we bump up against difficult times. That's when people go, oh man, I want some nicotine, or I want to drink one of my Feel-Frees that has kava and kratom, or I need to go get drunk, or whatever it is. Every fucking movie we watch, people are drinking to drown out their realities. And what happens is, when we're willing to have just powerful conversations, when we're uncomfortable, when things aren't working well, then we can get to the other side of it. But when we avoid it, when we have pain and we try to go around it, beneath it, instead of through it, if we can go through pain, on the other side is consciousness and connection, and it helps us to restore our power. But here's the game. We're in a world where the better the questions you ask, the better results you will get. And so part of the reason I removed TV from my life this year is I want to have powerful conversations with my wife before we go to bed. I want to ask her great questions, get to know her at an even different level than and we have an amazing connected relationship. But like, I'm asking my kids questions I've never asked before. And I got to tell you, all this shit's opening up. Like, I'm going to write a song with the DJ Steve Aoki at February 10th. We're writing a song together. My oldest wants to get into music. I get to bring him along. He gets to see one of the world's best and start to learn from that. My youngest loves music. So like, all of a sudden, we're building a music studio in May. Because what That's just enjoying life along the way. That's the life we don't want to retire from. We're not waiting until we're 65 to do this shit. My partner's died at age 35 in a plane crash. There's no time to wait. It's about enjoying the moment, having gratitude for everything that we already have, accepting what we haven't loved about ourselves and find a way to love it, and all of a sudden the world opens up to us. And when David said I became a better listener, the first place I became a better listener to was myself and the God that's within me, my spiritual self, not just my ego. And when that happened, I could listen to others. Yeah, it took some work, it took some courage, and it changed the trajectory of my life to create a play, to create a comedy special, which I love and I want to continue to do, which led me to writing on a daily basis versus ever having someone else write my stuff for me. So what I found is I like to write, I like to record, I like to rehearse, I like to perform, and I like to connect with amazing people. And if I'm doing those 5 things every single week, I'm feeling fulfilled. That means that's why I sold my business, because I don't love operations, I don't love management, I don't love hiring, I don't love firing. So I changed my life. Does it mean that I'll have the same level of recognition? I don't care. Recognition isn't my value. Connection is. So, if you want to win first before you play, you have to understand. I think some people clap. So, playing not to lose is when people are stuck in the past, hiding from their problems, in so much worry and fear and doubt and holding on. That's playing not to lose. That doesn't ever help us win and feel expressed. But where most people are stuck in this room is playing to win. Work harder, run faster, do more, grow, expand, impact. It's all these very external things to validate who we are, but if we don't accept ourselves, none of that will ever make us feel whole. No matter how many awards, no matter how much money. And the great thing is when you're whole, you're going to probably have those things happen more as a byproduct, but they don't become the things you chase. Look, we watched Will Smith slap the shit out of Chris Rock. And you know what? Just before he did that, he went and had an interview with David Letterman. I recommend you watch it on Netflix, on My Next Guest. And when you listen to that interview, you can hear the turmoil he had. He had the biggest box office, but it should have been bigger. He had the biggest movie, but it should have been bigger. Never content. And when you hear he's so competitive, he's like, I'll outwork you, I'll outpace you, I'll do whatever it takes, but at the expense of his fucking humanity. So here it is, someone that we look at as the peak of their life that's in dismay and distress because they haven't had the time to know who they truly are and where they are in the world because they're trying to appease and sacrifice and do more and play to win. He is a poster boy for play to win. Play to win is awarded for most people. It's like a moniker that they wear. But play to win will leave you restless. Always at work, always telling your family and your friends and yourself you'll have time for that later. But we become our fucking habit of play to win. I'm so yelling here like an asshole. I don't sound like a comedian at all. I'm just screaming. Like, just because you're in Tahoe, I'm in Salt Lake, doesn't mean I need to yell like you can't hear the microphone. I apologize. I get a little passionate here. And it just proves David right, that I'm like a hurricane sometimes, right? My belief is when you have the right vision, you've already won. When you have a vision that is congruent with your sole purpose, you've already won because now you're enjoying the process along the way, and you never let the pursuit of that vision harm yourself or the people you love because you define, like I know I'm winning when I have time to go for a walk with my wife every day. I know that I'm winning when I can listen to the beats that my son's making every day without saying that I'm too busy. I know I'm winning when I'm saying no often. Like as David, I'm an ass. I say no a lot. I say no a lot. In the past, I said yes because it was sacrifice. It was appeasing. It was wanting to be liked. It's wanting to fit in, all that kind of stuff. But I say no to the things that aren't aligned with my vision, my sole purpose, my family, and the winning game that I designed. The winning game. The game that you make the rules. So win first by having a vision. Vision's the win. Value is the way to the vision. Dollars are the byproduct of that, and prosperity becomes your state of being. No more sacrifice, no more chasing more because you're whole, you're content, and you're complete. Now just be fully expressed. Whoever you are, doing whatever you do. Don't take a detour and say, once I make this money in real estate that I hate doing, then eventually I'll start doing the things I love because that real estate will eat you alive, because it'll drain your energy, because it's not who you are. Or, you know what? I saw someone else succeed in this crypto thing, so I'm going to chase that. We're going to yield farm that, and then I'm going to have all this money. What the hell is yield farming doing for society? Nothing. Oh, I saw this options trading program. Options trading is bullshit. All it is win, lose, betting and gambling, clicking buttons. Your life is worth more than that. Don't get trapped in the seductive nature of money making at the expense of fulfillment. You can have fulfillment and money making if you come from prosperity and honor your sole purpose and have a vision and then say no to anything outside of that vision. That's the game. Hey, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And if you're enjoying these videos, well, there's good news. More where that came from, so go ahead and click through and watch the next video now.